Resources and goods are the two most important aspects in our history untold, and it's time to talk about which resources you should go for and which goods you should start production early so that you are not falling behind. If you want to know how to actually improve your improvements and get the most out of it and how to get the most out of your regions, you can check out my other video I already posted a few days ago down below in the video description. But let's talk about resources. So whenever you are taking a new area and you decide you want a certain resource out of it, those are the top resources you should absolutely go for. The first one might actually surprise you a little bit, and that is fur. Yes, you want to get that, the good old fur, because it is a pain in the ass to produce. Yes, fur is relatively often to be found on the map. It's not super rare, but it is rare enough. But the biggest problem for fur is whenever you're putting down a hunting camp, you might already realize, oh shoot, there are no improvements I can put into the hunting camp. So basically, the fur you are getting through the production of the hunting camp is what you get. There is nothing you can artificially boost this with besides a one expert you can put here. But that's it. There are no tools and nothing else. And fur is going into a lot of crafting materials, especially when you want to utilize it for fabric. And of course, the trading goods, fur is really important, and you can also transform it into some other items later on. So get that fur, it helps. Another thing you want to get is not a special resource, but I also want to mention it because it is really important, is timber. Timber is a resource you will need tons and tons of because you don't just need timber for crafting and some of the units, you also need timber for nearly every building. Like so many buildings later on will need sometimes hundreds of timber, right? You are starting out with some low numbers, but then they're going up, and some of the bigger buildings, as I said, need over 100 timber, and I think even the hospital later on is like 200 timbers or something like that. So yeah, you can see here the distillery is 250 timbers. So get the timber as early as possible, and it's rather rough to get it. Like, I always feel like that materials are relatively easy to come by, but timber is a pain in the ass, even when you are starting close to a forest. So get the timber going, it's really important. Number two resource you want are horses. Yes, the horses. Horses are just amazing. Like, make sure you are getting as much as possible from them, and you want to get them whenever you see them because you need horses for crafting. You need horses for units. You can build the strongest units in the game with horses, especially because the AI seems to be a little bit, well, stupid to counter cavalry. And so horses are really strong, and you want to get them. Like, horses are just such a good thing for units and even like for your heavy plows and the plow in the game, which you will also need quite a bit. So get those horses and get them immediately when you see them on the map. They are so good. If you do not have horses because, well, oopsie daisy, you were not lucky enough, get elephants. Elephants totally work, not just for the ivory, but actual elephants, because you can use them to craft heavy plows, and you can also use them as a substitute for some of the cavalry units, and they are pretty strong. Not as good and not as versatile as horses, but close enough if you need a substitute. And if everything fails, there are also camels you can use, but they're really the last resort. And again, highly recommend horses, and if that doesn't work, get some elephants. Now, number three, something you want really early on is metal. Get all the iron and other metal resources on the map as quickly as possible. You will need so much of it. It's insane. My iron production is really high. You can see right here, I'm producing 15 iron. an iron consuming 8, and it will consume much more soon enough. So you want as much iron production as early as possible, because iron will be utilized for a lot of stuff, and we will talk about that when we are talking about which crafting goods you should actually start with. And speaking of which, let's jump right into it, shall we? So, what is one of the most important goods you should produce early? And the answer to that is, well, get plows. No, seriously, you want to get plows as early as possible, because plows will be with you till the high medieval ages. So you have to reach around mid game before you actually replace them with something else. So get those plows going. They will stick with you for a very long time, and they will only be replaced by the heavy plows when you reach the high medieval ages, which is, as I said, mid game. So it would take quite a bit. Oh, okay. But what's with tools? Yeah, let's talk about tools. So I don't have the lithic tools anymore because, well, they got replaced by the metal tools at this point. But when you see the lithic tools, not too important, interestingly enough. There are a few buildings which, of course, will get some perks from having the lithic tools, but you will replace the lithic tools starting with the Iron Age. Like, this is a little bit different than the plows. You would get the better replacement very early on, which is, as I said, in the Iron Age, which is the third age in the game. And then you were starting to use metal tools. And then, and this is the crazy part, the metal tools will stick around with you till you get the industrial tools. And the industrial tools will only be activated in the end game and, well, in the industrial era. So that is end game, and you will keep the metal tools around for a long time. So the moment you are able to build metal tools, get them. You not just need them for supplies to improve your tile improvements, but you will also need them for a lot of buildings. A lot of buildings will have the prerequisite that you need like 20 tools or something like that. So keep starting to produce them early on. You will need a lot of them. The third one, which is really important to actually keep this all running, is, you probably guessed it already, is iron. The good old metal ingots. And this is why I said you want as many iron ore as early as possible, so all the metals, because you will need so many metal ingots. You will need metal ingots for crafting items. You will need metal ingots to craft some buildings, and you will need a lot of metal ingots for your units. But there's something else which is happening with the metal ingots you really have to account for, is because later on you will be transforming those metal ingots into steel. So not only do you need metal ingots for crafting items, for crafting buildings, for training units, you also will need them to improve them into steel, which then opens up all the end game items in the game. So you want to have like a huge stockpile of metal ingots when they are then later on transformed into steel. So get that going as much as possible and build as many blacksmiths as possible. This is just something you don't want to miss out on. And you can never have enough metal. That's just the reality, because if you transform them later on into steel, you can never have enough. One last item, which is a bit late, early game to mid game, which I highly recommend regardless, is gears. Gears is also something you will need quite a bit for supplies, but also to get them into some buildings and build some buildings. Like, gears is also something I would highly recommend early on whenever you can, because they are really helpful and they will help your production so much. But those are all the items I highly recommend. So get the horses slash elephant, get the timber going, right? If you need some extra resources, get the fur, get the iron, and when you go under the goods, get the metal ingots, get the plow, and then later on, of course, the heavy plow. Get the metal tools, not the lithic tools, the metal tools. And as I said, get the iron going and some of the gears as early as possible. And those are like the items you will always need. Like, no matter how you are playing and what your play style is, those are the things you would definitely always need. So get them. I will probably put a list of those items down below in the video description so you can just look at them briefly and you don't have to listen to this video all the time. But with that said, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like, and also if you want to see more strategy games and of course ARA History Untold guides, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It will help me out a great deal. With that said, stay safe. Till next time.